Give us a number. At your peak, what do you think? 40 yards, what are you running?
I think I can run what Mike Vick just ran. Mike 4.75.
Welcome to Highly Questionable. Where Izzy be lying. Just lying.
Hey,
not about like actual sports stuff. You can trust them on that. Domonique Fosworth, who, his mind is blown. Let's just start doing some TV after he cleans up from all the brain matter going all over his office.
4.7.
Does LeBron have a point about the play-in tourney, or is he just being a whiny little baby?
All right, so let's start here. The final score in Lakers-Raptors was 121-114. Do not let that fool you. The Raptors beat the brakes off the Lakers, and LeBron does not look right. He's been saying now that he doesn't know if he'll ever be back to 100% in his career, and now the Lakers are in a three-way tie for fifth in the West. But keep in mind, this is the era of the play-in tourney. If you wind up as the seventh seed, you've got to go into that tournament, and this is how LeBron feels about that.
It doesn't matter at the end of the day if I'm not, 100% close to 100%. It don't matter, where we land, So, that's my mindset. And, if this happens to, we end up at sixth or fifth or whatever the case may be, or if we end up in the, the playoff, whatever that thing is, whoever came up with that need to be fired. But whatever.
Yeah, he's just a little salty, and I imagine that his opinion on this tournament became a lot more passionate once it started looking like his team was going to wind up being in it. Yeah, he does sound a little whiny for saying that, because I got to tell you, I found the whole tournament to be a contrivance, but I misunderstood how this thing worked. So if you did not know this, the 7th and 8th seed will then play each other. The winner of that game gets into the playoffs. The loser plays the winner of the 9th and 10th seed, and then those two teams play for a chance to get in. There is a distinct possibility that we could wind up with that play-in tourney having the Lakers and the Warriors, LeBron and Steph, playing one game to get into the playoffs. That sounds low-key fantastic, which would then be followed by those superstars getting in and playing against the 1 seed in the West. Hey, LeBron, I hate to break it to you, but this is just for fun, and it's starting to sound like fun. Why? Because y'all seem to be sorry enough to play in it.
The contrivance is working for you then, Bo. The closer we get to it, you're sold. Because I do get it. Like, for the fans, for everybody else watching, I absolutely get what the play-in tournament does. It gives these games meaning. And frankly, if you have a situation like this, it creates for a potential amazing 1-8 matchup. However, just from the eyes of a competitor, we play 72 games this year, and every other year 82 games. That should be enough to decide the seedings. We're not going in, and I've said this a few times, we're not going in and playing a play-in for the number 1 seed, are we? Because that has already been decided based on the regular season schedule. But in the bigger picture, which is more important, the 7, 8, 9, and 10 seed players being happy, or the rest of the league getting a bunch of watchable games and fans saying, hey, I really like that. If my 7, 8, 9, 10 team can't win a championship, I'll call it a victory just getting into the playoffs because we won the play-in tournament. I don't love it, obviously, but I understand where you're coming from, Bo. But I also understand where LeBron is coming from, even though last year, he had the exact opposite opinion. He loved this thing as long as his team isn't close to it.
Yeah, I mean, the playoffs or the play-in is a contrivance, but so are the playoffs. Like, if you want to put that much weight on the regular season, then we can go EPL style and say whoever has the best record at the end of the year is the champion. So I don't have any problem with this. Like, the only way I do have a problem with this is if somehow LeBron loses and then he's out of the playoffs, and we're all robbed of LeBron throughout the course of the playoffs. So the problem is not that we have this play-in game. The problem is that LeBron's in it, and he was hurt, and Anthony Davis were hurt all year, and they might potentially end up in it. That's the only problem with this, because you're right. We've gotten a lot more watchable games towards the end of the regular season. We get a couple eminently watchable one-game playoffs at the beginning of the playoffs, because that's the thing we love the most about college basketball. And then we get the playoffs after that. Like, I don't think there's much to complain about. It's going to bring up revenue potentially. It's going to give more entertainment value for us. All of this is good. unless LeBron plays one game, loses, and then doesn't play for the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah, let's see, Domonique, you hit on what the real problem is. The real problem is it looked like the Lakers are going to be the 7th seed in the West. Like, they look bad right now. Dennis Schroeder's just had to go into health and safety protocol situation. There's a distinct possibility they wind up literally not making the playoffs, which would make for a great play-in tournament. But Adam Silver might get rid of it next year for that very reason. One thing about the NBA, when they mess around and get some anomalous outcomes, job one is to make sure that this never happens again.
Giannis dominated the Nets yesterday, but do you believe he can do it in the playoffs?
All right, so we had a first-class regular season game on Sunday with the Nets and the Bucks playing against each other. Giannis finished with 49. Kevin Durant had 42, and Giannis was unstoppable in just about every way. Everybody the Nets threw at him basically had no hope. Now, the argument for the Nets winning the championship this year is basically they can outscore anyone, and that once they get into the postseason, they're going to have 3 different guys that nobody can stop. Here's the thing about Giannis. There hasn't been any one guy who's been able to stop him in the course of the last 3 years. When it's happened in the playoffs, it has required basically everybody. It has required a scheme to stop him. Who with the Nets is coming up with a scheme on defense to do anything? The argument for Brooklyn is an argument against scheme. It's an argument that talent will ultimately trump all. But if they do play the Bucks in the postseason, how exactly is that roster supposed to stop him? There's no one person that has an answer. There's no one person in the suit who should be coming up with an answer who's going to be able to come up with the answer. No, this could be very, very interesting if they do get to the playoffs and play against each other.
Well, in the Nets' defense, Harden wasn't playing yesterday. So you like to think that maybe he'd be plus 3 or 5 points, maybe, while he's on the floor. His offense will outweigh his poor defense. And again, in the Nets' defense, Giannis hit 4 of 8 threes. Like, he's not going to do that, but maybe once in the playoffs if you're lucky. So I think that he can dominate in the playoffs, but it's never been about Giannis to me. While he gets all the criticism, it's been about the people around him because like Bomani just said, it's taken the whole team to devise a scheme to stop Giannis. Nobody in the NBA can overcome an entire scheme designed around him. That's why you get other players around to hit these big shots in these big moments. So no, they can't stop Giannis. But yes, they could beat the Bucks if the rest of the Bucks don't step up when they all 5 get in the key and force Giannis to shoot trays.
In the Nets' defense, and James Harden probably shouldn't be a sentence that are said together because
right.
James Harden does not affect the Nets defense very much, and he certainly wouldn't have affected it against Giannis Antetokounmpo yesterday. To me, this was sort of a picture of what exactly you hope the playoffs look like if you're Milwaukee, a dominant Giannis who can do anything in the half court offensively, and what you pray the playoffs do not look like for Brooklyn. Because, again, this is the Milwaukee team where Giannis was essentially kept under control by Miami and lost in the second round. And so if he feels like he can do anything offensively, I think that team feels like they can beat anybody, the Nets and Philadelphia included. So if you're looking for some sort of projection into the playoffs, and this is any sort of inkling or any sort of peek into what that might be, not going to look good for the Nets. We're going to look really good for Milwaukee. And in terms of the future for Brooklyn, if you don't even make the finals or the conference finals with this trio, what is the future going to hold? Are you going to keep everything calm and not worry and keep that trio together and say, don't worry, we'll win championships with this formula? I don't know the answer to that, but I know if they don't get past the second round, end up losing to Milwaukee, there's going to be a lot of conversation about the future of the Nets.
Should Matt LaFleur start trying to fathom a Packers team without Aaron Rodgers?
All right, so the producer phrased this as such because Matt LaFleur, head coach of the Packers, was asked about the possibility of Aaron Rodgers not being a Packer because, you know, they got beef. And he says he cannot fathom such a world without Aaron Rodgers. And I understand why he is saying that because Aaron Rodgers won the MVP last year. But you guys understand that you blew this, right? Like, once you made the decision that you were going to draft Jordan Love in 2020, he had to be your starting quarterback in 2021, period. Like, you just had to make that call. No matter what happens this year, that's when we're going to move on from Aaron Rodgers. Except it's kind of hard to move on from the guy who just won the MVP. So now you're kind of stuck in this, and he doesn't want to come back. Problem for Aaron Rodgers is either you're going to play for them or you're not going to play for anybody, at least not anytime soon. They have absolutely no reason to do what Aaron Rodgers wants for them to do. If he's willing to go the Carson Palmer route, go home, put a for sale sign up and wait, then he can do that. but it costs a lot more money to do that in this day and age than it did then. It's a different CBA. It's going to cost you like probably $20 million if you decide to do that. So I might try to be nice about this if I was Aaron Rodgers, because being mean, you're going to have to go all the way, which is showing up to training camp and acting indignant. You're going to need to study under T.O. if you want to make this work. Otherwise, you either going to be the Packers quarterback in camp or the Packers quarterback at the crib.
Well, I think maybe he need to go to that TO school or be willing to pay that price. I'm not sure that Aaron Rodgers will be hurt by that. I'm sure we all will be hurt by writing a large check, but it's not like he's going to have to repo his car or something. If he wants to make this point, then he can go ahead and make this point, because everyone loses. He's burning down the crib. So it's not like if he sits out that the Packers are going to be fine with Jordan Love. Nah, they're going to be in trouble. He's going to be in trouble. So that's the risk that he would have to be willing to take, is that look at the Packers and say, oh, you wanted to plan for the future by drafting a replacement for me? Let me help you plan a little bit more for the future. Trade me, get a couple first-round picks, and then good luck. You'll win the Super Bowl in 5 years, which is what you are planning to do anyway when you drafted a quarterback over me.
Well, Carson Palmer didn't have that Jeopardy money, so I think Aaron Rodgers might have a little bit of leverage here. I'm just confused as to what the Packers' thinking is here, and maybe it's just that they're spoiled, that they essentially had back-to-back Hall of Famers at that position there. But when you draft his replacement, and then he's clearly angry, and his response is to, at this age, have an MVP season, then you should say, you know what? We messed up. We're cool. We're going to go ahead and get the best of whatever we can get. 3, 4, 5 years left out of Aaron Rodgers. The other option being that they're thinking, yeah, we drafted our next Hall of Fame quarterback in Jordan Love, and we'll be fine if Aaron leaves. And I don't think anybody thinks that, probably not even Love himself. So it just makes you wonder, is it just them being stubborn? Is it I have to do whatever the team, the ownership group, in this case being the Packers fans, I guess, want me to do for the long term? It doesn't really make much sense, because if you were to poll the fans right now, I guarantee you'd probably get about 95+% saying, hey, let's just keep Aaron Rodgers for the rest of his career. We'll deal with the rest of that time after he's gone when we get to it.
Hold on, let me get back to Domonique here, because you're right. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is willing to pay that price. I just want you to stop and imagine writing a check to your boss for $25 million. I mean, imagine physically writing out the numbers, all the zeros, all the commas, all the words. By the time you got to sign, do you think that you could go through with it? Because I don't purport to know Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what is important to him. I know damn well I would not be capable of doing that.
Up next on HQ.
Kirk, a legend at the bank, boy. We can say whatever we want. That man got $84 million guaranteed out of 84, and then hit him for another lick. And he's Kirk Cousins. Nobody even thinks he's that good.
Highly Questionable is brought to you by Delta Faucet. See what Delta can do.
As Blink.
Do you question if this is good analysis of the Vikings' choice to draft Kellen Mond?
All right, Robert Griffin getting ready to go pro in something else. That is to say that he is now doing a little broadcasting. He was on Bleacher Report's draft show when the Vikings took Kellen Mond, a quarterback out of Texas A&M. And you may remember that Robert Griffin and Kirk Cousins used to work together.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, number 8 in Minnesota is probably not real happy right now. Because Kellen Mond represents exactly what he doesn't do well, right? Kellen Mond's the big physical quarterback. He can run it, throw it all over the field. And I don't think that that's something that number 8 is able to do in Cousins in Minnesota. But I think that's what the coaching staff and the administration is looking for, should I say the organization is looking for. And as you see, Cousins has been collecting checks there in Minnesota for a long time, taking them to 8-8, 9-7 seasons. If he has a bad start to the year like he did last year, I could see the fans and maybe the organization leaning towards Mond if he comes in and impresses.
I don't know where to begin, because if he hadn't said a word, I'd start with the shirt. Right. If he hadn't wore the shirt, I'd start with the teddy bears. If there weren't the teddy bears, I'd talk about his trophy corner on that table that he once thought was going to be an entire room. But there was the shade, all of the shade at every point. All he talked about, Kirk Cousins, who was fairly good last year, all he talked about was what he could not do and how a 3rd-round pick is coming to take his job. I feel like you should be more salty with the Shanahans than Kirk, but I don't know what Kirk was saying to you when wasn't nobody around, because you are mad.
he was going to make sure that this was a story, though, because it escalated as it went along. There were 3 separate occasions where first he said number 8, and he said he does the things that he can't do, and he ended by calling his name out and said collecting checks for going 8-8. Like, he was going to make sure that it was on this show. It wasn't like, oh, this slipped out, or, oh, this could be interpreted one way or another. Him in that shiny shirt were here to make a statement, and he made it. He don't mess with Kirk Cousins.
Nope. It was a full 3-piece, a full-on 3-piece, with the last one entirely unnecessary. He was already down on the ground, and you know what? Every fan, even the fans of the Vikings, are just like, go on, I know you're right. Like, nobody's arguing with him because, you know, even though he took the L in this particular battle of quarterbacks, because Robert Griffin III is in another career now, he will always be able to have these jokes and come out looking pretty good.
Yo, collecting checks is the height of disrespect. He basically said that Kellen Mond go come in and rip off that man's ski mask and make him drop the money. Damn.
Too late. It's all guaranteed. He ain't giving none of it back. Congratulations, Kirk Cousins. Well played, my friend.
Kirk, a legend at the bank, boy. We can say whatever we want. That man got $84 million guaranteed out of 84 and then hit him for another lick. And he's Kirk Cousins. Nobody even thinks he's that good.
Do you question if Michael Vick is currently faster or slower than you thought?
Okay, so Rich Eisen every year runs the 40-yard dash. It's this cheeky thing to remind people all these guys are way faster than we are. He'd be there in like the 6-second range or something like that after actually training for it. But now he gets some of his celebrity friends to come out and also do this, and a handful of all-time greats ran the 40. One of them is Michael Vick. Let's watch.
4.72.
4.72. The dude's 40 years old and talking about how he can't run no more, and he ran a 4.7. Now, to me, the best part of this event, and I did not see this, and nobody's talked about it, one of the people running the 40 was Ray Lewis. It was Ray Lewis and a bunch of other guys who were known for being fast, and I feel like Ray Lewis had to pick out one of those guys and say, I'm not losing to you, because Ray Lewis ain't going out here to do nothing just for charity. He's doing it to win.
On one note, I don't think that Rich Eisen is the best representative for us media to be able to run a 40-yard dash. However, on that same note, I have been offered to be clocked at my 40, and I refuse to know what that time is. I don't want to know. I'll let you know in game action. I don't want the clock to tell me because I'm afraid it's going to be somewhere in the 5s and it's just going to knock me out.
It's absolutely going to be in the 5s. You don't be out here working out so that you can, like, for athletic
the
performance.
Upper 5s,
you work out for photo shoots.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was going to be like shocked and say that 4.7 is really fast, but watching those clips, like, I feel like Vic wasn't even running. Like, I think he could crack into the 4.6s if some money was riding on it. I don't think they were timing him saying, like, we're going to give this much to St. Jude's if you run this fast, because that wasn't full Vic. He had no lean at the start. There was no lean at the end. I think that was slow for Vic. I think he got 4.6 in him.
Joey Galloway once told me that he could still run a 4.4. He was like, I couldn't do anything for 2 or 3 days after. But he said that if he wanted to, he could still run a 4.4.
That's a lie.
Dead. Rated R. In theaters and on HBO Max May 14th.
Tonight at 7:05 p.m. Eastern, Brewers and Phillies.
Okay, the clip that we are about to show you is from a game in the 7th inning. It is tied, and I've been told that this is maybe some of the worst umpiring of all time. Let us see what we have. All right, here we go. Okay, so McCutchen, that's him. He was called out for running out of the base paths. Let's see if he actually did that. Looks like he's just running in a straight line, Okay, that's the first out of the double play. Wait, is the guy safe at first too?
Called safe at first too. They overturned that.
Wow. That might be the worst umpiring of all time, except for the time that Levon Hernandez got the called third strike at the end of the National League Championship Series game with a pitch that was down the middle of the opposite batter's box, and he's treated in Miami like some kind of damn hero. They were cheating. Who wants to go next?
He was a god in Miami. I love you, Miami. All right, but look, this umpiring is just terrible. The thing that makes me sort of question the whole idea of not being able to overturn something like this is because it's a judgment call. Well, you're making a split-second judgment. Why not be able to overturn that judgment with a little bit more evidence, like they were trying to show you in that clip? McCutchen is showing you his footsteps. They overturn calls in the French Open because they can see that the ball clearly landed inside or outside the line. So if you have the dude's footsteps, you should be able to be like, you know what? My bad. Everybody's safe. Let's go back to the bases.
I mean, it's a judgment call, you're right. But what is the point in having cameras and having replay if you can't overturn that? From what I understand is you're entitled to 3 feet in either direction off of the line that you yourself established. He didn't go anywhere near that. So if your judgment is so bad that a man in a straight line somehow looked like he's 4 feet away, then I'm not sure that you need to be there. I'm not a guy who's like, hey, robot umps, but robot umps, please, for this particular call in this particular situation.
All right, that is our show. Come back for Izzy in the library with the guns. Domonique Foxworth. Check him out on Foxworth Fridays on the Right Time with Bomani Jones podcast every Friday. That's why we call it.
I work on my sprinting technique.
That is a 5 flat tops.